and thank you for staying with us. And we're with Bruce Lipton, and we're talking about some of the information in his latest book, The Biology of Belief. Bruce, before we went to break, I said to you I'd like to hear more about how your being aware of kinesiology changed your work direction. So what happened then?
Well, when I did this kinesiology test and found that there were actually two minds controlling my biology and that my conscious mind wasn't the one that was in charge, it really freaked me out a little bit because I started to recognize, well, how much of my life is coming from my conscious mind, which I think I control, and how much is coming from that invisible, more powerful subconscious mind? Because I started to realize that if I had beliefs or behaviors built in there that conflicted with my desires or my intention, then all my consciousness would never override that, and I would then more or less be a victim of the programming in my subconscious mind. So this really led me on a quest to understand the nature of the programming that we end up in this very, very powerful and invisible subconscious mind.
Okay, so what year was this roughly?
Oh, I'd say roughly about 1985.
Okay. So then what happened as far as your next step went?
Well, after 1985, I actually had a great opportunity to go to Stanford University and continue my research on stem cells. And this time I brought with me not just the study of the cells, but the relationship of the cells to the mind, recognizing that through the research that it was actually the mind that was controlling the biology of the cells and not the genes, as I had been teaching in medical school. And this becomes very important because if we buy the conventional belief that genes control our lives, this thing that you read like every day in a newspaper, a gene has been found to control this or a gene is found to control something else, then we buy into the belief that genes control who we are, which is actually what's in the textbooks. But then that makes us, if you recognize it, victims of our heredity, meaning I didn't pick the genes and I can't change the genes, and the genes were given to me and now I have to live with these genes. And I feel, well, what do you do in that case? You're a victim. And yet the new biology of the cells that I was working with, the epigenetics, which is a new science we'll talk about in a little bit, really revealed that the genes did not control the biology, but in the sense of the human body, the mind controlled the genes. Well, this becomes very, very powerful because, as I said, if we believe genes control us, we're victims.
Yep.
But if you recognize that the mind is powerful in controlling life, then you start to realize, well, wait, if you change your mind, you change your thoughts about life, then you change your biology. So all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, this is very doable. I can control my life with my mind and I can change my mind. And that gives me the freedom of being a creator of my life rather than a victim of my genes.
Okay, so I know a lot of your work is to do with when the baby is being developed in utero.
Yes.
Would you like to share a bit around that?
Yes, well, this is what I started to understand. Again, we're diverging from the conventional belief that I was teaching while a professor in a medical school of genetic determination, the concept that we are just an expression of our genes, then to go in and start to find out, well, when do the beliefs actually get programmed into our subconscious mind, the very powerful mind? And I was just really taken back by the reality that the programming of our subconscious mind actually starts in utero. While we're in fetal development, we're actually being programmed. And it turns out we're being programmed by the experiences of our mother. Meaning this, very simply, is that when I was teaching medical school, we talked about the fact that the role of a woman in the development of a child is to provide nutrition. So when a doctor, an OBGYN, for example, is talking with a woman about her pregnancy, the primary issues are you eating well? Are you taking vitamins? Are you exercising? And basically that's the only contribution that we consider the mother offers to the child, because our belief system says that genes control the development of the child. So since genes control the fetus, the mother's role was just nutrition. But now with this new understanding about how the genes are controlled by the environment and the influences of that environment, then all of a sudden it says, well, yes, the fetus is in an environment, and the environment is determining the action of those genes. So it turns out parents are not just providing nutrition. Parents are genetic engineers, because their attitudes and beliefs and their emotions are actually changing the genetic expression of their own children, especially as they're developing in utero. So this led me back to understand this relationship that starts in utero about how the environment offered by the mother is very important in selecting the genes. As I talk about it in the book, it's basically, I talk about the mother as nature's Head Start program. I say that on the basis that when a child is born, it's going to live in the very same environment that the mother lives in. So as it's developing, then the mother's perception of her environment, her beliefs or attitudes about what is going on, are translated into the fetus via the information that's carried in the mother's blood. Now, this information in the blood, as I said before, we were thinking the mother only provided nutrition from her blood. But nutrition isn't the only thing in blood. The emotional chemicals are in the blood. The hormones are in the blood. The growth factors are all in the blood. So not only is nutrition crossing from the mother to the fetus, but so are the chemicals and hormones that control the emotions and the biology and the physiology, so that whatever the mother is experiencing, so is the child. And as I said, this is nature's head start, because what it's doing is preparing the child genetically and physiologically to respond to the same conditions that the mother is responding to. So when you put this all together, you have to say, well, if the mother's happy, the fetus is happy. But if the mother is angry, the fetus is angry. If the mother's afraid, so is the fetus. And every one of these emotions changes not just the physiology, but changes the genetics of the child as well. So there's a very different genetics, let's say, or biology or physiology to a person in a protection mode, who gets in protection, versus a person who is happy and in love and in growth. And it's so profound, it changes the brain structure and the body even. So for example, when someone is under stress, the stress hormones send the blood from the viscera where the growth is occurring out to the arms and legs, and we call that fight or flight, you know, the adrenal system. Yep. And the reason the blood goes to the arms and legs is to nourish those tissues to fight and to run. But now, put this in a fetal situation. If the mother is under stress, and then the blood is being directed to her arms and legs as well, the stress hormones cross the placenta. And when they cross the placenta, it causes the same blood flow to occur in the fetus. Now here's why it becomes important, because in a developing fetus, the organs and tissues develop in relation to how much blood they get. So if a mother is in stress and causes her blood to go to the periphery, it occurs in the fetus as well. So as this fetus is developing, the blood is preferentially in the arms and legs, and the fetus gets a bigger, stronger body, because this is the kind of body that the fetus would have to use in that same environment the mother's afraid of. So that you change the size of the baby, you actually shortchange the development of the visceral organs, which are important for our growth and our immune system and our other functions. You actually shortchange them by putting more of the blood to the periphery. So the one thing right away is that a child born to a woman in a stressful situation like that it's got a much larger physiological body, arms, and legs. But here's a second character, and this is very critical, and this is the part there's a trade-off. Yep. It goes like this. When you're in a fight or flight situation, let's say the mother's in a fight or flight or stress situation, the stress hormones actually cause the blood vessels in the forebrain, which is the thinking part of the brain, to constrict. And by doing that, it forces the blood to go from the forebrain to the hindbrain. And the reason for that is the hindbrain is where reflex behavior is controlled. So
is that the more reptilian brain?
The more reptilian part. It's a muscle coordination and and the strength running and responding. It's a reaction part of the brain than a creation part of the brain. So what this means is if you have a fetus and the stress levels are high in the mother during that development, not only did the blood go to the arms and legs to make the arms and legs stronger, but the blood preferentially goes instead of the forebrain to the hindbrain. The net result is the hindbrain gets much larger. Well, this is really good. I mean, if you're going to have a lot of muscles, you need that hindbrain to do that coordination stuff. So you're essentially making a street fighter or an athlete, okay? But the significance is there was a trade-off, and that is when squeezing the blood vessels in the forebrain to push the blood to the hindbrain, you shortchange the forebrain in its development so that you actually compromise the child's intelligence. You make a very survival-oriented street fighter, but at the cost of making that child much less intelligent. And in fact, as a fact, it's been suggested that a mother can reduce the intelligence of her child 52%